Joining us now with this week's Race in America is Ashlee Banks. Ashlee.
Hey there, Scotty. So today we're going to take a trip to Chicago, where Chicago police officer Jason van Dyke was found guilty of second-degree murder and 16 counts of aggravated battery. The 16 counts are for every bullet he released into 17-year-old Laquan McDonald. On October 20th, 2014, just 6 seconds after getting out of his squad car, Van Dyke opened fire, shooting McDonald 16 times. Chicago police officers initially said McDonald was lunging at Van Dyke with a knife. However, after an investigation, 3 officers were accused of covering up the incident. During closing arguments today, Van Dyke's lead defense attorney, Dan Herbert, blamed McDonald for his own death. Herbert told jurors at any point throughout that 20-some-minute rampage how Laquan McDonald dropped that knife, he'd be here today. However, jurors disagreed and found Van Dyke guilty. The second-degree conviction carries a sentence from probation up to 20 years behind bars. However, his aggravated battery charge with a firearm carries a sentence of 6 to 30 years per charge. Shortly after the verdict was read, demonstrators took to the streets chanting, "The people united will never be defeated." Joining me now to continue this conversation is Paul Street, author, journalist, and historian, who recently published the article, "Chicago will burn if Laquan McDonald's killer walks." Thank you so much for joining me today. Now, history shows officers are rarely charged, and if they are charged, they are often found not guilty of any wrongdoing. In this case, Van Dyke was found guilty of second-degree murder, but is this still considered a loss for McDonald's family because he wasn't found guilty of first degree?
I think demonstrators, activists wanted a first-degree conviction. On the other hand, there is a widespread sense, civil rights community here, I'm not going to speak for the family, that this was a victory. Van Dyke is clearly going to go away for a long time. When you combine the second-degree conviction, that was my prediction, that we'd have a second-degree conviction, and then you add in the 16 aggravated battery convictions, we're clearly going to be looking at a significant sentence.
Paul, you are
yeah, go ahead.
Paul, you are a resident of Chicago, and in your article, you said the biggest gang is the Chicago Police Department. Can you talk to how Jason van Dyke shooting and killing Laquan McDonald isn't an isolated situation?
Oh, there's numerous cases of black individuals in Chicago who've been gunned down by the police. Rekia Boyd, I think it was 3 years ago. Just this summer, we had the case of Harith Augustus in a Southside neighborhood called South Shore. Shot with 5 bullets in the back under very dubious circumstances, and there's many others that you can cite. And this is a long-standing problem in the city of Chicago. And there was even a Department of Justice report that came out in early 2017, one of the last acts of the Obama administration, that was sparked by the Laquan McDonald incident and shooting, and documented that there was a long-standing pattern of reckless foot chases and shootings and unsafe car chases followed by shootings all over the city, but particularly concentrated on the black south and west sides, and also in the Latino neighborhoods on the city's southwest and northwest sides.
Paul, like you said, the DOJ did release a report in 2017 saying that the CPD uses excessive force, violates civil rights, and demonstrates racial bias against black people. And let's not forget, when it comes to this case of Laquan McDonald, some members of the CPD lied about the events that transpired before Van Dyke killed McDonald. So although many people are happy that Jason van Dyke, his verdict, he has been convicted for second-degree murder, they may be happy, but would you say that they should still be concerned?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I've been in so many marches and demonstrations in Chicago. This is probably the first one I can remember with a tone of celebration, but I've been counseling people to be careful about the celebration, because this is clearly a case where I thought, and I was right, that the perpetrator, Van Dyke, was going to be sort of a token thrown to the mob, kind of like John Burge more than 40 years ago, a Chicago police officer who was convicted of torture of black arrestees. You know, and yeah, every once in a while there's a victory in this, but the broader underlying institutional patterns are still very much the same, and they are about enforcing patterns of savage racial separatism and inequality in this city that remain intact. That's really the root that's the taproot of this repressive policing in the first place, is to maintain those boundaries and barriers of race and place and class, and keeping people very poor in highly concentrated black neighborhoods on the south and west side, and that's not gone away at all.
Paul, I want to know from you, why do you think it took for citizens to pressure the police department to release the video of the Laquan McDonald shooting? And then why, after it was released, why was Van Dyke then charged? Why not before?
Well, it was two things, really. The first thing was just the flat-out blue code that is standard in urban police departments across the country. Cops stand up for each other. When they do hideous things like what Van Dyke did, they cover up for each other. And that went in, that was operational in 2014, just like always. But it became very important to Rahm Emanuel, who has recently announced that he won't be running again for a third term as the mayor of Chicago. But at that time, he was running the following spring. And when I say that time, I mean the fall of 2014. He was running the following spring for his second term. And he was already very unpopular in the black community because he's been starving the black community of resources, closing public schools, closing mental health clinics, denying them of public development dollars, and all kinds of things. He already ticked off the black community, and he knew that if this tape came out making clear to everyone the racist conduct of his police, that it would further complicate his political relations with black Chicago, and that's part of why he held on to it. It ended up backfiring against him because he was forced by two citizen activist journalists, Jamie Calvin and Brandon Smith. He was forced through their activism, ultimately, and with an inside tip from a Chicago police officer I've never heard the name of, but clearly something came out from the police that led to this remarkable freedom of information lawsuit, and a county judge forcing the Emanuel administration to release this incredibly provocative tape that's been seen millions of times around the world. And it was the tape that did Van Dyke in. It's all about the tape. His defense just could not hold up against the undeniable nature of his murder as seen by millions of people on the videotape.
All right, Paul, we're going to leave it right there, and so many people would agree with you that is why Rahm Emanuel is not seeking re-election, and there are a lot of people that are happy with this verdict. Thank you so much for your time. That's it for Race in America.
You bet.
Follow me on Twitter at Ashlee M. Banks. Back to you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.